Welcome everybody. I'm so happy to finally have this conversation today. It's been a long time coming. Everybody's very busy to get everybody together. And so thank you, first of all of you for accepting my invitation, for taking the time of doing this with all of us. And I am Gabriella. For people who don't know me, I am a soprano. I live in London. I'm also the founder of the charity Donne Women in Music, which promotes women in music, especially women composers from past and present, their stories as a way of inspiring behind all the books and everything he keeps doing right now. Not less important, of course, we have the wonderful pianist, composer, musician, again, educator, Catarina Domenici from Brazil, a dear friend, an artist that I truly admire, and I had the joy to work with and premiere her pieces. Welcome, Catarina. And equally brilliant, the wonderful Camilla George, or Cami G, as I heard just right now. Amazing musician, composer, you know, a woman in the jazz scene, not only in London, but, you know, with some fantastic music coming up. She will tell us later. Welcome all. And again, thank you for being here. For the people watching, I'm gonna just ask, please hold your questions to the end when I will have a chance to read them, because right now I will not be able to see them properly, and let's just enjoy our conversation together. Nate, welcome. Let's start with your background, your music background first, because I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the first book you wrote was Why Did I Give Up Music? No, why?
Close. I wish I didn't quit music.
I wish I didn't quit music, right. So, but you now are a professional musician. So you did go back to music, right? So can you just share with us your history with music, and how did it start? What made you stop? What made you come back?
So I grew up in a fairly musical family, I'd say. Not necessarily that my parents played instruments like that, but was very, very fortunate, very privileged that they provided me and my sisters with the opportunity to learn instruments. And also we were involved in church as well. So that was a big part of growing up, being in church every week, seeing other musicians, you know, experimenting, just getting to, you know, every now and again, getting to play in front of people, getting used to that feeling of being in front of people and performing. So that formed a large part of my childhood. And then going forward from that point, when things start to get a bit more intense, right? When you have to go, and it's not good enough to just turn up to a lesson once a week, when you have to go and sit at the piano. I was playing piano at that point, and you know, go through your scales, and then it starts getting harder with different grades. And then I remember country motion came into it, and I was just like, what on earth is this for? You know, and yeah, from that point, when the hard work started, really it just started to, and that coincided with me being around, you know, 12, 13 years old, where it's just not, it didn't feel as cool anymore, didn't want to do it, didn't, you know, wanted to be outside playing with friends. Fortunately, I was playing clarinet as well at the time. So I I wanted to quit them both, but I was told I wasn't allowed to quit the clarinet. So that stayed, the piano stopped.
Good parents.
Well, I can say that now, you know, not then. But yeah, that's what happened. So the clarinet continued, but you know, I quit playing the piano for a while, until it became something that I wanted to do for me. And that journey basically formed the basis of the book, really, just for me to almost put down some of the frustrations that I felt, you know, being that age, all the different challenges that came up, and all the challenges that I heard, you know, growing up from others who quit and didn't go back, from students that I would teach, and just seeing their frustrations and what I would do with them that maybe I wanted when I was younger as well. Understanding that, you know, technology wasn't what it was back then. I'm not that old, but you know, a lot has changed in the last 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So access to certain artists, just, you know, you can go on your phone now and you can watch concerts for days we didn't have that back then, you know. So perhaps that would have been something that would have kept me to continue to play the piano. But fortunately, I went back. But that was because I you know, for one, I had the access, which many people don't have, you know, and the means to have people around who I could play with and to learn from, which a lot of people don't have either. So there's a lot of privilege going on, fortunately for me anyway. But yeah, the base of the book was really to help, you know, especially adults, help them to see what their role can be in helping to shape a child's musical journey.
But the books only came in 2018, is that correct?
That one came out in 2018.
And did you have more before? When did you start writing? Because you had until then a career as a musician first.
Yeah. When did I start writing? There was a few things here and there. Like there was a blog which will remain unnamed. Yeah, that I was doing I was writing. There was one point I wrote every day during Black History Month, like about a different person, or an idea connected to Black History Month. This is, I think, back in 2013. Just to get things out there, things that I was trying to understand, and you know, and people I was learning about. So yeah, writing's kind of been it's been there in the background bubbling until I really decided to finish something. I think many of us can relate to that, right? Just actually finish it. Like Camilla's gone on and recorded albums now, but I'm sure there was a point where, you know, she had to just say, all right, either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. So you just got to do it. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
So of course we called this talk where all the Black female composers, because Donne, the charity, is focused on women, but of course it's also we're going to talk about something really cool, which I like. You have to explain to us what WAME is in a minute, but before you do that, so we think it's enough to promote women. We know there is a huge inequality in music when it comes to, you know, the history of music and women, but then the inequality goes on and on and on. If you think of women or Black women or Asian women or gay women, and anyway, so we start piling up all the difficulties that women have to go through. Not only women, of course, but let's just focus on women just for now. So during your education, I'm sure, well, it's quite sad for me that I only realized the gap in my education in terms of not learning about women in music. Let's just focus on this because there's women in literature, women in art, women in everything. In 2014, when I started to, when the penny started to drop, and then you start to realize how ignorant you are, and how much you would have treasured knowing those people a long time ago. Yeah, and I think I speak as a Brazilian child who grew up in the south of Brazil, and as you know, as wonderful as Brazil is not Europe. We don't have, you know, I teach here, and I see the privilege that children have here, and oh my gosh, I always think, wow, if I had that, you know, growing up in Brazil. Everything we had was dreams and things we read in books or maybe we saw on TV. And I had a lot of male role models that my mother imposed to me because that's who she knew, right? And I'm sure you also missed these role models in terms of Black artists, Black composers, Black writers. Did that influence you to stop at some point, and did it inspire you to go back and try to do something to inspire more people as well?
I don't know if it made me stop. I think perhaps knowing what was possible would have helped me to continue. But definitely, you know, once I've started to see certain things, it has been about trying to make information more accessible, even though, let's be real, like Google is your friend, right? So it's very easy. But for different reasons, you know, we haven't been we haven't been fair. We haven't been equitable to people other than the great composers that we all know, right? So it's very much a case of trying to shine a light on different people from different backgrounds, because their music is just as important, in my opinion, anyway. And I know that's not necessarily shared by some, but
well, the some, we don't really care about them, do you? They're the
well,
prejudice.
I mean, the thing is, with those some, you find a lot of those are in positions to influence young people.
Yes.
So in a sense, we have to care, because this is if we don't care, these are the same people who will continue to perpetuate these ideas that we've just held close to us, and we believe to be true, that there is a certain type of person who can compose in a certain way, and there are certain musics that we should be listening to over others, and that plays out in the programming and the biops, you know what I mean, the documentaries that we see on TV, etc., on film, the people who are portrayed in those and how they're portrayed even. So I think it's important that we think about everybody, because we're all in some way been affected by these supremacist ideas of what music is and what it should be and how it should be learned, and who should be teaching it,
Yeah, definitely. And I can only imagine how I know my frustration with, if I focus only on women's repertoire. So, but this problem is so much bigger than only this. Oh, really, today there was a tweet that Dr. Kate Kennedy, is a colleague of mine. She said, it's very weird to hear that classic FM keeps saying that, how is it? We are the home of the world's best music.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true, and they keep playing the same songs, the same repertoire. And that's exactly as you said, there are some very important key people and organizations who have the power to actually change something in a more impactful way. Is that a word? And why do you think they don't do it? I'm playing a devil's advocate, which I don't think you will know the answer, but it's a question that people ask me, is a question that I ask myself, is a question that I'm sure many of us have asked all these people on Twitter and never got a response. So what is stopping them?
I think it's a complicated answer. I think it's a complicated answer, and it's not a complicated answer at the same time. I think there's many different things. So, for example, I think the main thing really is just that I think some people feel like there's no need to, right? It's just the idea that what we have already is the best, and there might be a few additions to it, and there's a few peripheral figures, and a few pieces of music that we might rediscover, right? But that's it. We've kind of sorted that canon out. It's cool. It's sorted. So this is what we're going to play, because this is the best, right? It's the home of the world's best music. So I think that's the main thing. And outside of that, there's many works that haven't been recorded, for one. So that's an issue. There's many people who, there's scores that there's some that aren't even complete. You know what I mean? There's problems with licensing and publishing. There's problems with, there have been problems even in the last year, of course, COVID and wanting to record, but you can't record. So I think there's a lot of issues there. Also, there's this economic issue of, well, if we change our repertoire, we're going to lose our customers, right?
Yeah, but they will lose. Sorry to interrupt you, but and I know you will agree, but don't you? They will lose their customers anyway, because they will die eventually. Because, as you said, when you were 13 years old, you were not listening to classical music. And pop music is much more innovative, isn't it? Accepts new things much better than classical. I don't know, at least I think. And somehow we are freezing classical music to listeners who might enjoy this. But what do you think 17 years old are listening to classic FM, for example?
No, but then again, I don't think many 17-year-olds are listening to radio a lot. Like it's how we consume music has changed a lot in the last 10 years. So, whereas, back then, 15 years ago, let's say, if you want to listen to music, you're either buying a CD, buying a tape, or you're listening to, to Classic FM. These days you can go and you can listen to whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, very, very cheap. But it's not free, but it's very, very cheap. But some platforms are free, like to a certain point, right? So I think that's changed a lot. I just think at the end of the day, if people want to make change, they can. And if it's a matter of, I mean, there's many reports that have come out about the importance of diversity in different companies, right? So it's not necessarily that you're going to lose your audience. You might lose some people, sure, but you might gain more. But there is a lot of boldness and a lot of risk that you have to shoulder in order to move forward, because we've been stuck in this one place for so long. At some point, if you do want to change, if you really do want to change, you have to step out and say, we are committed to losing whatever, or to risk, we're committed to moving forward because we believe in this. We believe that this is right. Moving forward in for justice as opposed to for profit, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna just pause with you for a moment. I'm gonna ask Camilla and Katarina just to share a little bit of their experience as well in their music education and their careers. Camilla is in a very male scene, aren't you as well?
Well, yeah, I guess it was for sure. But what I think is really nice about the UK jazz scene has had an overhaul. And I think the reason for that goes back to an organization called Tomorrow's Warriors. I met them. It's run by a bass player called Gary Crosby and his partner Janine Ines. And their whole reason for putting this together was to create something which was free space for kids of all ages to learn about jazz, to learn what the stuff that you need to learn to be a jazz musician in a safe space, particularly centered towards ethnic minorities. And as I said, I met them when I was 11, and probably when I was about 18, 19, or maybe a bit older, they had a focus on women. And they had seen that the UK jazz scene was not representative in terms of, diversity in any sense. There are hardly any Black players. And if you think jazz is a music of Black origin, that's actually quite shocking in itself. And there were hardly any women. I couldn't, if I had to coming through, there were no female saxophone players that I thought of, that I idolized. So they had a program, they put it together. I can't remember what it was called now, but basically it was a whole thing of putting together loads of female projects, out of which we had a best-selling group, Nerea. And out of that, you've had the jazz stars of now, Nabaya Garcia, who's had huge success internationally, particularly in the States. Cassie Kanoshi, Shirley Tete. There's a whole host of prominent Black female artists and composers. So obviously there's always room for the scene to change and for it to grow more. But I think that's a really positive thing in itself. I mean, I remember doing a gig at Jazz Cafe a couple of years ago, and I didn't consciously do this, but we looked around in the band room, and it was half and half female, half male. And that was just because I'd chosen the players that I wanted to play with. And I think that is a sign that things are changing on the scene. And yeah, there are organizations that are helping that. But for me, I think Tomorrow's Warriors really were ahead of their time in terms of that.
That sounds amazing. Are they still going?
Yeah, they've been going for, I think, 30 odd years. They've both, Gary Crosby got a medal from the Queen. I don't know if that means much now, but we'll just leave that there. But no, they're very much prominent on this new UK scene. And, you know, it's a development kind of program that's linked to other places. You know, we've got links with Jazz Refreshed, who are very, very prominent on this new UK jazz scene. They have a label, they have regular, well, I say regular gigs, they used to have regular gigs, obviously that's changed now, but and then links with Giles Peterson's label, Brownswood. So there's a whole kind of web of things at the moment, which is changing the face of jazz, I think.
So you are actually super lucky to be in touch with them so young as well, isn't it? What a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm slightly older than, say, some of the really big names, like say Nabaya, etc., Sheila from Kokoroko. And so I still remember the time when it wasn't like that. And when I went to music college, I was the only woman on my course. I was also the only Black person on my course in the whole, the whole jazz department. I remember saying to a fellow friend, a trumpet player, a friend of mine, Mark Crown, we were literally trying to count how many Black people there were. And I think we got to about 5 or 6. And this is a jazz course. So, I think, I do remember the time when things were not like that. And of course, things are not perfect now either.
Katarina, how was it for you? Share with us.
My music education, well, was very mixed. I'm a mixed race. So I was raised in a assembly school. My father was a percussionist and the leader of the assembly school. My mother was white. And I was introduced to the piano later on as a teenager. But I think that's why Gabi mentioned of belonging to all genres and kind of not recognizing the frontiers between the genres has a lot to do with that, to how I was raised, where I came from. And one thing that really gets to me here in Brazil is it's how African ancestry is hidden. Because Brazil, there is a lot of miscegenation in Brazil. And of course, the kind of horrible side of it is that it was actually a government project. By the end of the 19th century, they brought on immigrants from Italy and Germany in particular to whiten the population, because the vast majority was Black in Brazil. So I grew up with figures, very prominent figures in literature and music that I could swear were white, but actually not. For instance, I always loved the Hymn of the Flag, O Hino da Bandeira, by Francisco Braga. I could swear he was white because nowhere in his biography said that he was mixed race, and he was raised in an orphanage, and he got a scholarship to study in Paris and Dresden. And I played a trio by him a couple of years ago. That is like such wonderful work. And he's like, just because he was a conductor, an important composer, he got whitened. They erased his African ancestry. Same with Chiquinha Gonzaga, which features in Nate's book, right? She was mixed race also, and they whitened her, including in the very famous TV series that they had, I thought, 15 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
They chose a white actress to play Chiquinha Gonzaga.
And that's sorry, just a parenthesis. That's a very interesting thing, because we had a live session with the Brazilian ambassadors a couple of weeks ago, back in March. And we had two situations like that. One was somebody asked me, why is Chiquinha Gonzaga listed as Black on Donna's list? That was one. And the other one on the Instagram post of our chat, somebody commented, there's only white women here. But then I went like, that's not true. So it is true. Brazil actually.
Yeah, and the other thing is with people of my origin, half and half, we could go both ways here in Brazil. If you're poor and if you're a cleaning lady, the probability of seeing as black and red as black is huge. But if you have education, the probability that you be seen as white in Brazil is much higher. So Brazil, contrary to common belief, is a very racist country that deliberately hides its African ancestry.
Shocking, isn't it?
Shocking.
Yeah. Nate, can I go back to you quickly? Because then let's go back to where are all the Black female composers. How many of them did you know until you wrote the book? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Not many. I think I was like a lot of people. You know a few names, but there were so many that I had no idea about. And going through and learning about them was incredible. Their stories and the things that they faced, and just and even the even the time periods that they span as well, right, is amazing. So that there wasn't many, but that was another reason why I felt like this book is important, and especially, like, you can tell, because of the illustrations, etc. It's for young people, for children, really, because I always think, we as adults, we are able to, not that children can't, but we can, and we've had the opportunity to find out about these women for years. Like, let's just be real, for years. So I feel like for some of us, we're in this, we are, and we might even still remain in this space of constantly having to think about Black women, right, as composers, constantly. Like, it's not default, right? And perhaps, as the older you get, the harder it is for you to just be like, name a composer, and it's not just all white guys, right? So the hope is that when children grow up and they access books like this and other resources that are available, that you ask them, name a classical composer, and it comes up on some kind of game show, whatever it is, or you're playing a game with your friends or whatever it is. They might say Haydn, but they might also go and say, well, Hannah Kendall, and then they might say Florence Price, and then they might say, there's no barriers at that point, right? But I think it's all about telling young people from as early as you can, exposing them to these amazing, to these amazing women, trans women, to these, whoever, and this book is just the start for me of hopefully a series of where we can look at women and men and just people from different places around the world, different backgrounds, different ages, different abilities, so that we can all learn about their incredible music and see everyone as equal.
Yeah, I think there are like two roads. So sometimes, even the composers that are part of the project on the list, for the people who don't know, on Donna's website, there are like more than 5 women composers listed from pre-medieval times to 21st century. Some women don't like to be called women composers, and some women, of course, will not be seen as a Black woman composer, or I'm a trans woman composer. Why do we need to have the middle names, right? Why can't we just call composers? And it's always something that it's a valid argument, and at the same time, I do feel that we still need to push them forward, because I don't think we are safe yet. I think there are many good things happening, but I think it can all go back to normal very quickly if people, as you said, if you do not keep, it's like constant push. And that's a bit sad, because in March as well, when we had the chat in Brazil, we had the honor to have a fantastic Brazilian composer, Josie Oliveira. She just turned 85 this weekend. The woman has seen it all. And she said it like, people think this conversation about, equality and gender equality and feminism is new. It's not new. I've been seeing this since the 60s. Very, very little change. And if this really worries me, and I'm sure it worries everybody else, it certainly worked. I mean, she kind of resigned, which is a bit sad. It sounds to me that she would resign, because she said this will continue to happen. You go, no, we don't want this to continue to happen. But it's an uphill battle, it feels like, isn't it? Camilla, how many women composers did you know? And then we go back to Nate. So I forgot to ask Camilla, actually.
What you mean growing up?
Yeah.
I think that would probably be a 0. Honestly, it would have been a 0. I got into jazz really, really young through my dad, who was a massive jazz fan, and his granddad was a saxophone player. So all my idols were male. Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Jackie McLean. I hadn't no idea that women even composed or even performed in the jazz sphere when I was getting into it. So yeah, it's quite sad to admit, really.
Well, I think it happened to all of us, and I think it's sad. It's embarrassing and scary as well, isn't it, that you don't notice as a woman, and I suppose for you as a Black woman as well, all these people, the amount of talent that history had, that, and it's really, really scary, for all of us. I think we all have such a dedication for music and passion and respect for this art, and we want to research and learn as much as we can. And then suddenly, at least it was for me, you have this shock of your life when you just realize how ignorant you are, and it's extremely sad. I was going back to Nate. It's really, I think it's very generous of you to do what you're doing, and very amazing, because I also agree with you that we should start with young people. The sooner the better, isn't it? And not only with people who want to be musicians. I think, as you said, you have to tell these stories, and that's, for me, I started the Donne because of the stories, of course, because of the music. But not everybody will be a musician, not everybody will know the music of all these women. But every time I tell one story, when I tell about, okay, she's not Black, but when I tell, Barbara Strozzi was the most published composer in Venice in the 17th century, and people go, what? Yes, and she did it alone, without a husband, without going to a convent, and people are, wow, that's amazing. Every story, it inspires people, and they remember that. And I think that's why we it's not only about music. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think you're absolutely right. It's funny, when Camilla was talking, I wrote something called How Women Took Over the London Jazz Scene in 2019. I think I wrote that in, or 2018 I wrote it in, talking about Camilla and the Buyer and Sheila and Cassie and Richie, and Shirley and Nikki, and there's so many. And I always say to people, in some ways, I don't think the world needs everyone to be a musician. You know what I mean? I think that could potentially be a disaster, or at least a professional musician anyway. But I think there is something, because also, you know, if you understand some of these stories, you realize that it's not just about performing, right? There's so many different, I mean, we need people who repair our instruments, right? We need people who are tour managing. We need this. There's so much in the industry to get involved in. So it's not necessarily, let's learn about these different female composers, for example, so that you become a composer, right? Because you're a woman. There's like, no, it's let's learn about them so we can be inspired by their stories. No matter where you go in life, right? You can take those stories and maybe you can apply it to your life. Maybe it becomes a topic, a conversation starter at some point. You never know where it can lead, right? But it's just about, it's about learning. It's just all about learning. And if we can, you know, if we can help children to have a breadth of learning, then I think that's a good, because all we're trying to do, I think, with children is give them the tools to navigate through the world, right? That's how I see education. We're just giving them tools. So the more tools we can give them, the better.
Yeah, totally agree. I want to ask you all about this. Please share your opinion. So just going back to putting people in boxes, right? Nate, can you tell us what WAME mean?
Yeah, so this is like
maybe
last year.
explain what BAME is, and then let's talk about WAME.
Yeah, so the idea of WAME kind of came about. It was slightly flippant of me, really. It's just being frustrated at the term BAME being used, especially when, you know, pronounce it as BAME, you know, but BAME, Black, Asian, minority ethnic, right? And there's conversations around, you know, should we use this acronym or not? And I can't remember where I was. I think I was doing a session with a group of people, and I said, you know, sometimes you have to flip it on its head and think about how you would feel if you are constantly being referred to like that, right? So if you are referred to as, you know, someone of the WAME community, which you mean white and majority ethnic, talking about, you know, the UK, right? Then how would you feel if you're constantly seeing headlines saying, you know, talking about the WAME population and WAME underachievement and, you know, so on? Like, how would that make you feel, right? I'm pretty sure you would like it. You can be specific and it's okay, because we know what we are. And at least we are starting to become, I think, more and more comfortable in public about who we are and what we're about, right? So I don't think WAME should necessarily stick or anything like that. It was just kind of a comment to say, hey, think about it from a different perspective. When you're trying to put us into boxes, think about how you would want to be treated and how you would want to be referred to. That's all it was, really. So
and now comes my I have a real question. So on Donna's website, we do have the option for people to find composers, because it was asked, actually, when we were thinking of redo the website and have you know, categories for people to search. We did a research on Twitter and by email, blah, blah, and you know, many composers requested, oh, can we please have a way of people finding not only Black, Asian, and ethnic minorities, but also LGBTQ composers. And then it's really funny because some people want to be part of that and some people don't want to be part of that. And I don't know what to do. So at the moment it's still there because the majority still wants, and he makes it easier for people to find in case they want to find a specific composer to program. But what's your opinion? I would love to know your opinion, and all of you actually, because you're both composers. You're both on the list, so
I think it's useful for the things you just mentioned, and if people are okay with it, fine. But I think it really works well for composers from Europe and the so-called developed world, because we from the so-called third world, we are already excluded. You know, we're in the periphery somewhere. So for me personally, it's better to be just in the Brazilian Latin America category for sure.
Cami?
So do you mean as in on the website you've got a category which uses the term BAME? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not a massive fan of that term, and in terms of me being categorized in that, I don't love it. I guess would be my thoughts on that. Just generally because I think, especially, I can only speak for my scene, but we've done so much work to create presence for Black artists on the UK jazz scene, and particularly Black female artists. And I think that's really been really good work. And I think as a result of that, I prefer to just be referred to as a composer and saxophone player, because yes, obviously I am Black, and yes, I'm female, but we're kind of striving to get to a place where people just see you as what you are, which is a musician. So I guess, yeah, for me personally, I don't like the term. And if someone from my scene were looking at this, you know, I've been talking about the lovely parts of the scene that I've come up through, but, you know, scene is very, very white, and was a majority kind of white middle-class male scene. So if they were looking at something and they were going to program, you know, book someone for a festival, they're not going to look in the BAME section, because they have a preconception that they're all rubbish players. Oh, they can't read, they can't do this. Nah, it's all hype. So I think that's the problem when you section it off, is that people that are well-meaning, of course, will think, oh yeah, I need to know more about works from Black artists. But I think in general, most people, from my experience, would use that as a way of further exclusion. That would be my thoughts.
That's really interesting in a very sad way. Go, Katarina, sorry.
Yeah, I just remembered one thing that I think it's very important for me, which is I don't mind being put at all in the Black category, because that's half of what I am, right? And I think it's really important for two reasons. Here in Brazil, because of racism and the way education whitens the population, and I abhor that mentality in Brazil. So it's a way for a political engagement to fight that, for people to recognize their African ancestry and embrace themselves for what they actually are. The second thing is about representation, because that's one thing that I missed a lot in my student years. Nobody looked like me, right? So yeah, nobody looked like me. It was really horrible, this lack of representation. So I think it's really important, especially in classical music, because that's where I could not find representation at all, ethnic and gender, of course, but.
But do you think if you have like someone, I mean, my music is all about where I was born in Nigeria and my Nigerian family. Do you not think if you have someone that's really like, this is what I am, and all the people that Nate has mentioned, I mean, that's basically what we're wrapping up where we're from. And in terms of that coming on, you know, being strong in that I am an African artist, blah, 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 but not necessarily, but being recognized as an artist and not necessarily having to be, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to be in the Black category. Obviously I'm Black and I'm proud to be Black, but I'm just saying as a whole, being an artist and being representative and being proud of where, you know, where you're from, I think is quite a strong statement. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I completely get what you're saying. but at the same time, things are not black and white in Brazil. That's the thing. It's not black and white. And Brazilian identity is still like they shed light on one part and they hide the other. So I think it's very problematic.
And it's also in Brazil, the opportunities are so small, it's much smaller, you know, and the circles are very tight, and they keep people out, isn't it? As well.
Like I have been teaching at my university for almost 30 years. I'm a university professor. And throughout these years, I have one black student studying classical piano. One.
Wow. In Brazil.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah. It's lack of representation. All my the department of music where I work, it's all white. It's all white. There is no.
Yeah, Camilla, just to clarify as well, on the website, it's no categories. It's just a filter. It's just a way of filtering. So you can filter by country of birth or genre, or so it's not like you're gonna be there in this box. No, there's no box. But you know, it's just if you know, it just. I thought it would be useful for people trying to program things or find people in a quicker way to filter things. But again, it's not and I don't think it's even complete, because as I said, not some people want to be part, some people don't. But of the historical composers, I thought it was important to, for all the reasons, you know, Katarina said, and for the reasons Nate also mentioned on the book, you know, to show people, give them a bit more, put them a bit forward, just to sort of give them the attention they deserve. I mean, there's so many. I don't know how you're going to do with your books, Nate. How you're going to choose.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm to be honest, I'm surprised what you said about Brazil, Catarina, because like I thought, you know, like I love Gilberto Gil, right? And I thought, you know, someone like him, like I did a podcast episode about him like a couple of weeks ago. And I thought someone like him would have, you know, his just, you know, his presence alone, you know, would inspire many. I'm sure it has. But I'm sure there's so many more who need to be seen, right? And I think in these conversations about, you know, putting people into categories and so on, I think we're kind of moving out of this kind of age of information and moving towards an age of personalization. So I think these days it's more about, you know, I think for a start, the individual people, if they have the ability to say, I don't want to be in this category, I think this is how we're moving into this, you know, as people on the earth, right? We're, you know, companies are targeting you, not you, right, but you know what I mean? And I think the same goes for people who are learning about music, and one of they're trying to figure out, I think, a little bit more about who they are and finding people who are more like them. So if they're able to do that and to say, I'm trying to find a trans Brazilian person, right, then I know then I can search and hopefully I will find somebody, right? Because I might want that influence, you know, yeah, for representative purposes, maybe to show my children, you know, to show colleagues, whatever it is, right? Or I might want to know about, you know, someone who was born in Nigeria, who plays a saxophone, who's jazz, you know what I mean? And so how can I find someone if I don't have that information? So I think there is, on both sides, you know, more of like a idea of personalization, so that we can find what we want, as opposed to, and people can represent themselves how they want, rather than, you know, and I think the internet's kind of been an amazing leveler at that, where we all have our own ability to put ourselves out there how we want to put ourselves out there, rather than relying on, you know, big companies to do it for us and to say, well, I'm going to put you into this box, I'm going to call your music world music because I decided to do that, and you have no say in that. It's like, now you don't have to do that at all, you know. So I think if we can give people the option to find exactly who they're looking for, but also give the people who are on these databases to identify with how they want to be identified, I think then we're moving to a point where we can all find exactly what we need whenever we need it.
Good point. Good point. And I think it's really nice that you mentioned Gilberto Gil, no, because that's the other kind of division we have here in Brazil between classical music and Brazilian popular music. And ethnicity plays a huge part in it too, you know, like there is just a minority of blacks in classical music in Brazil and a majority in popular music, like really big names, including women composers like Clementina de Jesus, Dona Ivone Lara. Wonderful. But when you get to the classical music, first of all, Chiquinha Gonzaga was not considered a classical composer until a few years ago, like 5 or 10 years ago. She was considered like, you know, something else, right? And then when they put her on television, they choose a white actress. So the genre, the music genres also play this kind of racial divide. So I think that's I think it's wonderful that we can choose how to represent ourselves. Yes, and that's why I choose to kind of fight for the visibility and the acknowledgement of a mixed identity. Because I think we can get rid of boxes once we recognize the boxes, once we acknowledge, you know, that they're there, and yeah, perhaps you could fit here, but you could also belong to 2 or 3, and then we just come up with this. So why the boxes? Do they serve any purpose? But that only after you kind of go through this process of acknowledging who you are.
I think that's so true, though, especially like what's happening on the UK jazz scene. It's like it's probably easier for me now to say I want to be recognized as an artist because it's more acceptable to see a Black British musician. But if we go back to the days of the Jazz Warriors when Courtney Pine was coming up, well, no, it wasn't. That would have been completely unheard of. So yeah, I get your point. Thanks, good.
I'm just gonna tell people, if you wanna start asking questions, please feel free to do so. It's really interesting, and it's I think the most important thing is to keep the conversation going and keep the dialogue open to people to say what and how they want to be seen. I think that's the most, because there are no correct answers right now. One of our ambassadors is also a transgender singer-songwriter. I'm going to have a video with them in a couple of weeks. And I'm reading the book, which is called Trans Like Me. I really recommend. And you know, it's so moving to read. And then there is a moment when they write, oh, when I was a child, I dreamt that when I grew up, I didn't want to look like a man or a woman because I want people to recognize me for how talented I would be, and not because I was a man or a woman or now as a transgender. But you know, and I think it's so moving, and it's still they keep educating people, and that comes to you know, very a while ago we had the famous Oprah interview with Meghan Markle, and I don't know if you, well, Catarina, you probably didn't see it. There was an interview on This Morning with Dr. Chola Mos Shogbamimo, and you know, she's so amazing. And then I think somebody, I can't remember who said but do you what kind of comments did you think it was racist? And then she really lost her patience, because of course he would. And then she
Yeah,
said, "This is
we
exhausting."
stand Dr. Shola.
Yeah. She said, "This is really exhausting." So she said, "It's not the job of Black people and ethnic minority to educate white people of racism that was perpetuated by white people, you know." So and that's why I think Nate and all of you and all of us in different ways, it's so generous of you to be taking time to actually talk to people, because you probably are tired of doing this, you know. Don't you get to a point when you can, like, guys, I told you already, right? It's enough, you know. I'm sick of this. And I say the same about CN as well, because can you imagine how many times they have to repeat the same things, you know, and hear the same horrible comments. I think there is a bit on the book also. They say, "Oh, I've been called Miss, Ma'am, dude, mate, young man," you know, sort of, and have the, you know, and and they say the children are the best, no, because they're always the best. They call her Miss Sir, or they call them Miss Sir, or and they just move on instead of anyway. Sorry, I just wanted to. Oh, sorry, we have a question. Nate, you wanted to say something. I cut you off. Sorry. No. Just a comment from Kezia. Hi, Kezia. Kezia is also an ambassador for Done, amazing contemporary pianist, Brazilian, but lives here in Oxford, not in London. Hi, this is such an inspiring talk. However, as a Black Brazilian classical pianist, that wasn't my reality. During my musical education in Rio, I certainly wasn't the only Black classical musician, and that's nice to hear.
And I think that depends on the region of Brazil you live in. I'm from São Paulo state, and at my university, Unesp, in the city of São Paulo, no, there weren't any. And even at the Eastman School of Music in the United States, there's just very, very few people there. Very, very few people there. So I think you were lucky that you were in Rio. That was awesome.
Yeah, but when I was here at the Royal College, I had one Black colleague. Amazing. Hi, Natasha, if you're watching. So I don't know if there are more questions, but are there more questions amongst ourselves? We can keep chatting here forever. I mean, I don't think we're going to reach a solution for everything, but it's nice to try.
I'd just like to know, Katarina, what are you doing at the moment? What's going on with you right now?
You mean professionally?
Mm-hmm.
Composing, performing, teaching a lot at the university. Of course, all through this little window on the computer, because everything is canceled. So everything moved to this virtual, almost non-existent space, right? So, yep.
But didn't you have a concert with the orchestra?
It was postponed again.
Oh.
Yes, because things here are really bad. We have this black flag, which is like the last stage of danger of getting contaminated by COVID. So and it has been 7 weeks now, and I think it will continue some more. Yeah. So we're not doing very well in terms of a foreseeable future that things will open up. I don't think so, because the risk is too high. There are many variants of the virus circulating and getting stronger, of course, and attacking younger people more and more. So it's not good. It's not good. So that's what I have been doing, Nate: composing, researching, teaching, and performing.
Well, I will leave all the links. Yeah, I will leave all the links to all of you as well on the YouTube description, so you can know each other's work. I am lucky because I know everybody's work. And the next time Katarina comes, she was here actually. We did a concert together last year, just before the pandemic started. Just like on the line of the beginning of it, we could never imagine what was going to happen. So next time she comes, we will have
we have to jam.
Oh
We
my
need to
God,
jam.
yes.
Get together and jam.
Oh yes, she's a great jammer.
Love that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also Camilla's been hard at work during lockdown as well.
Well, yeah, I stupidly decided to do an album. No, third album, very stressful. We just got it recorded in December before the whatever it was, lockdown number 55, and yeah, it's really exciting. It was my band normally. Well, it started off as a quartet, and then I included guitar with amazing guitarist that we've been talking about, Shelly Teta. And then I decided, nah, I'm gonna bankrupt myself and have a massive band. So I've got a horn section, 2 drummers. One is a US hip hop drummer, a kora player, and a rapper. Yeah, and it's been great. The music is something. It's a project I really wanted to do for a long time. It's a dedication to my people, the BBO people, and who are from southeastern coastal Nigeria, where I'm from. And it's started off as being about the creation myths, our creation, how we came to be. Then I kind of got into the Miss Markle and just decided now I'm going to research more about my village and more about us as people, and so it's become this whole project. But yeah, I'm proud of it. I have to say, I think it's my, when you put stuff out and you're like, yeah, it's okay. This I'm proud of. It probably will bomb, but I'll be proud of it. So my mum will buy it, so it's all good. But we're hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we're going to release it next year. The hope was this year, 2021, but I think we all can see that the music world is not what it was, and I think it's probably best to release it next year when hopefully I can tour. Yay!
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm sure 4 people will buy it. We'll buy it. Your mom.
No doubt.
PRS.
Actually, Camilla, I've got a ticket to your show at the Jazz Cafe that was cancelled.
About 3 times, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for the confirmation when it's going to happen, but we'll be there for sure.
Yay! Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Big band for that.
Wicked.
We are gonna end in a minute, but we have another question. Thank you for a wonderful conversation. Do you have any ensembles venues you think are doing a particularly good job of programming underrepresented composers? Good question.
Well, I'm going to jump in on the jazz side and just say that there are a lot of people, but I mentioned Jazz Refreshed and Tomorrow's Warriors, and they've been really strong on the programming of Black artists, Black female artists, people from, as I said, from all different backgrounds, particularly with Tomorrow's Warriors, because they don't charge for their services, and so the kids are coming and learning for free. They've got such a wide variety of kids from all backgrounds, and they put on gigs. They have very close relationships with programmers for the London Jazz Festival, international gigs. And I think, I would say they Jazz Refreshed, Tomorrow's Warriors are two strong organizations.
I think we had the Chineke Orchestra here as well.
Yeah, Chineke. I give a shout out to Elizabeth De Brito, who runs the Daffodil Perspective, which is a gender balanced classical music radio show. She's running it all herself, and I think she does a great job of not only playing great music but doing the research, to give you background give you background about these different composers and different music. And she's been running it for a while. So I definitely recommend to check out the Daffodil Perspective and Elizabeth de Brito.
She's coming up on a podcast very soon.
Nice.
Yeah. In Brazil, you have the Jasmine, isn't it, Catarina?
Yeah, the wonderful jazz band, only women, Jasmine's band, Jasmine's big band. You really need to check it out. It's awesome, Jasmine's big band. And I also want to shout out to Instituto Piano Brasileiro and Alexandre Dias, who is compiling all our musical memory, our Brazilian musical memory from all kinds of genres and style. Of course, it's centered around piano music, but you can find, just by being a Brazilian composer, you fit into the underrepresented category. So Alexandre is doing an amazing job at giving visibility, and the important thing of making the scores and the recordings available, because it's very hard to circulate music scores. Sometimes they were in manuscripts being eaten by rats and cockroaches, and he is making editions of everything. So this material, it's a huge site and houses a great quantity of material. You should check it out, Instituto Piano Brasileiro.
I'm gonna ask Camilla can you type the links to these people you mentioned, Camilla, on the chat, and then I can add or send it to me later. I will add all the links on the video afterwards, so people, even if they watch later, I can. Thank you so much. I think, Nate, can you tell everybody where to find your books, and can you tell more about the other books as well? I'm sorry we didn't have time to talk about all of them.
All good. Yeah, you can find the books on my website, which is www.thewhybooks.co.uk. So we have books, and there are t-shirts, a couple of t-shirts with black female. There's one t-shirt with black female composers. There's another t-shirt with black composers. There's the poster you'll see behind me as well, with black female composer poster. And there are other resources especially made for schools, especially during pandemic, so that teachers can have a free resource there to use in class or virtually. So there's also a podcast that you can listen to where I profile different musicians, including Gilberto Gil, who was one of them. There's one coming up with Florence Price, featuring Elizabeth de Brito on that as well. And I interviewed Jocelyn C. Chambers and Catherine Bostick, two American composers. And there was another episode on Samuel Coleridge Taylor as well. So there's lots of stuff on that website. And if you want to find the books, you can find them online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, direct from me on the website, like I said before, or most people use Amazon, so they're on Amazon too. So there's this one, Where Are the Black Female Composers? There is Why Is My Piano Black and White, which is a deep dive into the wonderful world of the piano, different musicians from different places around the world and different genres. And then we have this one that came out last week, actually, for children between the ages of 2 to 6. Where Are All the Instruments, which is a full color illustrations.
Wow.
And they're just a little introduction to different instruments, like violins and timpani and cellos and gongs, etc. The conductor of the orchestra is, as you can see, a Black woman, which is pretty cool. So yeah,
we should get those translated to Portuguese, Catarina. Let's try.
Let's talk.
Can you imagine?
We could definitely make something happen.
Brazil so much needs this, and as exactly as Catarina said, Brazil is people think there are two things. People think Brazilians are all liberated sexually, and that we are not racist. And you couldn't have more. They're the most wrong ones, right? You're arrested if you show your breasts on the beach in Brazil, and you couldn't have them. Anyway, off-topic conversation here, but it's true. Oh my gosh. Camilla, tell us where to find your music. Again, all the links will be below when we finish. Just give us a minute and I will do this later on. But
you can find me on my webpage, www.camillageorge.com. Find my music on Bandcamp, Camilla George. My most recent album is called The People Could Fly. The one before that's called Isang. Where else can you find me? On social media, Instagram at CamiG1. I've never been able to shift the CamiG nickname. So yeah, but if you type my full name in, you will find that. Facebook, you can check out the bands. The music's on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, all the main places.
thank you. Katarina, your turn.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Katarina Domenici, and also my website, katarinadomenici.com, and social media, Instagram, Katarina Domenici, and Facebook, Katarina Domenici, pianist composer. Oh.
But if you meet her, you can call her Kata.
Yeah, or cat. Cat. Meow.
Well, first of all, thank you all still here with us watching. Thank you, Nate, Kata, and CamiG, for being here with me and for this wonderful conversation, which I hope we can continue live in real life, in real life, live, with a glass of white wine in the summer here, and when Katarina comes as well for a jam session. I think, as I said, and the most important thing is let's keep the conversation open, and this discussion can never stop, is far from finished. We know there are no correct answers sometimes, especially on how to portray people the best. And I think for me, I have such a sense of responsibility being behind this project, which I know inspires and helps lots of women all over the world who feel invisible, but also I want to do it right? We all want to do it right. And I think the only way to do it the best we can is to keep listening to people and respecting everybody's decision and learning and educating ourselves more and more and more, because there's no other way forward. The way that our society is right now. And I always say, the more privileged you are, the more you have to study. That's it. So thank you all. And if you want to say a last message, please say your goodbyes.
Thank you,
everyone,
Gab.
for being here.
Desculpa.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nate. Go ahead.
No. Say, Katarina, bring the cachaça when you come over.
You can count on it. We are going to drink so much caipirinha. It's not going to be funny.
Yes.
Caipirinha.
We are jamming.
Yes, caipirinha and jam. We are done. We are happy. That's all we need to be happy. Good friends, good music, and caipirinha.
And sun, and sun.